Hello, everyone. Welcome to our regular meeting with executive session of the Litchfield Governing Board. It's Tuesday, January 24th, and I call this meeting to order. The first thing on our hello, everyone. Welcome to our regular meeting with executive session of the Litchfield Governing Board. It's Tuesday, January 24th, and I guess we can hear really well. The first thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take a moment of silent reflection. Okay, I feel ready to go now. I hope everybody else does too. Next on the agenda is recognitions and presentations. We are going to have the recognitions be by Mr. Nuanez.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Gunning, we are here to recognize and celebrate. This is one of my favorite parts of the board meetings. At the Litchfield Elementary School District, we pride ourselves in being a district of educational excellence. This would not be possible without the passion and the dedication of all of our great teachers. As we push our students to succeed, the teachers themselves also push themselves to higher levels. The National Board Certified Teachers, they are teachers that have earned the highest certificate an educator can achieve in the United States. Now let's listen to that one more time. It is the highest achievement an educator can get in the United States. And we have some in the audience tonight. Makes me very excited. Through a process that enhances their teaching practice, which ultimately benefits our students and their success. That's why tonight we really would like and take an honor in recognizing and celebrating the newest members to join the MBCT. Not being able to be present here tonight is Chandra Armstrong from Palm Valley Elementary School. In our audience tonight, we do have Jessica Beeson from Rancho Santa Fe and Melissa Giacio, also from Rancho Santa Fe. We could have you come on up. Thank you. We're going to take a picture. Okay.
As everyone is continuing their hugs and congratulations, I just want to say my, sincere thank you not only to you ladies who have gone through this grueling process, and I'm learning a little more about it since our last presentation, but also I thank you to the district and the individuals that have gone through this process and act acted as mentors to those that are now going through. From what I understand, the process is difficult and long, and having someone that has not only gone through it before but wants to see others succeed and achieve in this district, whether it's on their campus or somewhere else, is a pretty awesome place to be. So congratulations, and I hope you will pay it forward.
I echo my fellow board members' comments, and congratulations. One of my kids' teachers is one of them, so it's pretty exciting. I told her I get to see her teacher today, so Evie says congratulations. And I just appreciate that you guys are willing to put that time in and do that, because our students benefit from the work that you guys put in to accomplish that. So thank you guys very much. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is going to be salary discussion, compensation study, and we're going to start that off with Director Reichs, who's going to start us off on this.
Sorry. Good evening, President Zeidema, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, and meeting attendees. I would like to introduce you to Jeremy Calles. He is a consultant with True Professionals, LLC. Mr. Calles will present the findings from the compensation study that we completed at the end of the year. I'd like to respectfully request that we hold questions for Mr. Calles until the end of his presentation. Additionally, I wanted to share that district administration will discuss the study recommendations in more detail in our future governing board study sessions. This evening, we seek from the governing board any additional information you would like district administration to bring to our study sessions. So I turn it over to Mr. Calles.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the governing board, thank you for having me here tonight to go over your compensation study. On our agenda tonight, we'll go over the scope and method of the study. For those of you who were on the board last year, this is the same scope and method that we followed last year, but I'll detail that out for our newest board member, Member Owens. We're going to go over minimum wage history, talk about minimum wage history both within the district and then also within the state and how that's been looking. And then we'll take a dive into each of the employee groups. So we'll look at the classified hourly, we'll look at classified exempt, the administrators, and the certified. So the full scope and method for this study is there was 115 positions that were studied. That was across 12 different salary schedules, things like substitutes and stipends. Those things were excluded from the study. And for each position, we had to verify the level of responsibility. And so that's a process of me sitting with both your HR director and director of finance to go through. That one work better? Yeah. All right. Hopefully you can hear me better now. Actually, it does sound better. All right. So yes, so went through a process of verifying the level of responsibility for each of the positions to make sure that when we're comparing, for instance, like a payroll clerk 2 or a payroll clerk 1, and if you guys only have one payroll clerk position, to look over those and make sure that we are bringing in a good comp that's a good match to your position. So we go through that process. It consists of 10 peer districts. That were identified by the district. We use a lot of the auditor general's reports to help guide what the peer district should be for the district. But we also look at geographic regions when determining those peer districts. And 75 industry postings. Those are companies that are currently posting on Indeed, just pulling off of Indeed a comparable position that's outside a school district. So that industry comp could be a charter school, it could be a private school, or it could be just a business that's here in the nearby neighborhoods, depending on what the position is and whether or not that's a viable comp. All of that's put into a dashboard to make it easy for a comparison, to be able to walk through and build out all the different scenarios. So looking at that peer group, that consists of Avondale Elementary, Buckeye Elementary, Kyrene, Liberty, Littleton, Pendergast, and Tolleson Elementary. So mostly elementary districts. However, we also have Agua Fria, Union High School District, Dysart Unified, and Peoria Unified because they're in close proximity to the district. And so they are competition for the district when looking at some of these positions. Just an example of some of those 75 industry comps that were pulled in. You have Arrowhead, BMW, City of Tolleson, Data Doctors, KinderCare, Learning Works Preschool, Legends Furniture, again, another somewhat random industry comp, but in the position that we're looking for had a decent comp. And Pebble Creek Resort Community was another one of the, out of the 75, another one of the industry comps that were in there. All right, so first we're going to get started talking about classified hourly staff. Go a little bit through minimum wage history, and then we're going to dive into how do they compare on the starting base, how do they compare for education and experience, and then overall, how do they compare to the peer group. So when we look at the history of minimum wage here in Arizona, in 2016, minimum wage was at $8.05. That was just above the federal minimum wage. We have escalated it significantly since then, and you can see the progression through the years, where now minimum wage is at $13.85. The minimum wage in Litchfield has been somewhat in line with the state. There's a couple of years where the Litchfield minimum wage was a little bit higher than what was at the state, and only the newly hired staff at LESD are getting that minimum wage. But then you see the significant increase that was made as a result of last year's compensation study, and we made those changes, and now the minimum wage here at Litchfield has been moved up to $15 an hour, and we'll see how that played out with the study and how that compared out to the peers. Now, when we're in Arizona, we spend all of our time in Arizona. It's a lot that it's easy to think, well, whatever's happening here in Arizona, I'm sure that's happening all across the nation. There's nothing unique about our state. Our state is somewhat unique. We've been climbing the ladder on minimum wage. There are other states that have a similar type of system where minimum wage will grow with inflation. A lot of those states that have that system are capping at $15 an hour, which means once they hit 15, they will stop growing with inflation until something new is passed. Our minimum wage law does not have a cap. So once we hit 15, we will go through 15, and we will just keep climbing with inflation until something else is done to change that. Currently, there's nothing being looked at to look at capping that. In fact, it's the opposite. There is an initiative forming that would look at escalating that increase on minimum wage by $1 per year over a 2-year period. So if that makes it onto the 24 ballot, you may see minimum wage jump even faster, in which case you'll see us get over New York, Massachusetts, and some of the East Coast states that tend to run a higher minimum wage. But this is where we rank currently. We are 8th in the nation, and that's counting District of Columbia, which obviously isn't a state, but still gets their own minimum wage and runs the highest minimum wage in the nation at $16.10. We're running at number 8 right now. So we're catching up to being the top of the list in terms of minimum wage. So it is kind of somewhat unique how we've been doing minimum wage here in Arizona. So now getting into that classified hourly, now that we set the stage for that, there were 73 positions analyzed within the classified hourly staff, near being defined as within 1% of where the median was for that group. And the comps, the number of comps that were used could vary by position if we couldn't find good level matching comps. But I kept last year's data just to show you where you were last year when we had this discussion, and then the improvement to where you are this year. And so what you saw last year is you had a significant number of positions that were running below the comp group, whereas now almost everyone is either near the median or above the median. So almost all positions are running very competitive now within your classified hourly. The handful of ones that are still ranking below, that's because some districts have targeted certain areas. And so when you look at food service, transportation, and technology, those are some areas that have been targeted by various districts to be able to increase those a little bit more than the pace because of the needs that they were filling in those areas. And so those are some instances where you're still remaining below because the anticipated increase from your peer group has gone up more than what was built into last year's dashboard. When you look at placement for education, this hasn't changed much from last year. You still have less than half the peer group that's giving additional compensation for education upon placement. And in some cases, yes, a master's degree may get you up to 10% within this classification, within classified hourly. But for those that are running increases, you have like Peoria, who's doing it at a discretionary increase. And so they're not necessarily disclosing when they're going to go ahead and honor a degree for a classified hourly staff and how much they're going to honor that degree. So what the increase is going to be. Now, HR knows, right? They have a process in their department. They're just not publicizing that. So that's something that The publicly, they'll say we may award additional compensation for education, but that's something that's worked out at the time that the contract's being offered on whether or not they're going to honor that and how much. And in Litchfield, currently, there's no increase on placement for this group. You look at for experience, you have a couple of extremes. So you have Dysart, who's not doing any increase for experience. And then you have Tolleson Elementary, who prior to just recently, and by just recently, I mean weeks ago, was giving up to 38.4% increase for 10 years of experience. They have completely reconfigured their salary schedules that just passed board and went into place a few weeks ago. I'm going to get more into the Tolleson study because all the things that they changed have made a significant impact. And it impacted your peer ranking as well in some of these groups. So we'll go through that one in a little bit more detail. But Litchfield is running below the average and median. So again, this was something that we identified last year, and we put it as a phase 2 priority. So something to possibly look at for this upcoming year. And that's because when you're doing your placement, you have that 0 to 2 grouping. That if you have between 0 and 2 years experience, then that's the starting base. And if you have 3 years experience, then you get a 1% increase, and then it tiers from there up to the 6 and then caps at the 6 years experience. And so that's still running behind what's happening in the peer group that is closer to 1% per year. So 1 year experience, you get 1% more on the starting base is more the norm of what you're seeing in the peer group. All right, so here's last year. This is where we were last year. The district was highly competitive when going after someone who had no education and no experience, right? So we had the one green square. And for Member Owens, the way this heat map works, pretty basic with the green, yellow, red. Green, you're in the top third, you're highly competitive. Yellow, you're still competitive, but you're in the middle. And red, you're in the bottom third. So this is what the heat map looked like last year, where for classified hourly, very competitive if they didn't have any education or experience. It then went into still near the median for the vast majority of the cells. But then once you got out to advanced degrees and advanced years of experience, it did start to turn red and not be competitive for those employees. So that's where it was last year prior to the board making the changes that they implemented. This is where you're at now. You are highly competitive all the way across 6 years, all education levels for your classified hourly staff. You are still remaining competitive through the 7 years and the 10 years, and we have no red left on the classified hourly. So significant improvement from where you were last year. The district is very competitive in this area now. Next, we're going to move into the classified exempt. Same process. We'll go over the base, education experience, and the overall scorecard. So last year, classified exempt and admin were grouped together. I felt the need to break them out. The picture was a little bit different for the two, so I felt the need to break them out this year. And so when you look at classified exempt, it's kind of where you were with classified hourly a year ago, where it's kind of, you have some that are below, you have some that are near, and you have some that are above. It's kind of a mixed bag here with your classified exempt positions. In terms of giving additional compensation for for education to classified exempt. It is uncommon in the peer group. Only 4 of the 11 are doing it. 2 of them have it well defined, whereas the other 2 are doing it on a discretionary basis. So you're not out of practice there in terms of how you handle education for your classified exempt staff. Now, when we look at experience, again, this is the trending issue because the way you treat experience for the most part is fairly consistent across your employee groups with that 0 to 2 grouping and then the 3, 4, 5, 6. And so again, it's running behind the peer group on how experience is recognized on salary placement. So this is where you're at on classified exempt. With less than 6 years, it is competitive. But then when you get to 7 years experience, all the way out to 10 years experience and across all degree levels, then the district is no longer competitive. And so you see that when you have districts that are awarding for experience all the way out to 10 years, obviously they're passing you at the 7-year mark. Because of the 7-year mark, the district is no longer offering those increases for experience. And then the same thing on degrees. So once you hit that 7-year mark, that's when we're seeing the red pop on your classified exempt. Less than 7 years, they're still near the median and being competitive. All right, next we'll move into administrators. Same process. So this is all your assistant principals, assistant directors and above. This is kind of how you shake out. You got some running below average, below the median. I like to bring in average and median just to give you two different ways of looking at it, because sometimes you could have someone that's so far above or so far below that they'll really skew an average. But when you see the median, it helps bring that into more context. But again, it's another mixed bag of some of them are running below, some of them are okay, and some of them are above. When you look at education, with education, most of the peer group is not offering anything additional for education. This was actually a recommendation for last year, was to look at just honoring the doctorate. So the doctorate, the adjustment was made for the teachers placement, but the doctorate wasn't in here for the administrators. So just looking at honoring the doctorate, a lot of times when you get a principal, you expect that they would have a master's. There's a lot of them that'll come in with just a bachelor's, but your expectation is for a master's. It's never your expectation that all your principals are going to come to you with a doctorate. So kind of recognizing the doctorate, that'll also be in the recommendations. Although it's not, you can see that it's not completely common within the peer group to honor that doctorate. So some of the districts are doing it, but not all of them on honoring the doctorate. When you look at experience, again, it's the same process. And because the percentage is calculated based on the total salary, and you guys have a performance pay plan that is embedded, that's why you're seeing it at less than 1% when you look at the 3 years, because looking at how much did the total compensation increase at that 3-year mark. But it's the same thing where it's still trailing the peer group without doing at least the 1% per year on the experience across the group. So here's where you were last year, looking at your administrators, very competitive at the 3 years and under mark, and then not quite as competitive, but still competitive, going all the way across, and really only one red spot. And that was why the recommendation was being pushed about give that extra 1,000 for the doctorate, so we could flip that red to yellow. That was the one spot that when they have a lot of experience and they have a doctorate, you were dropping to being not competitive in that area. This is where you're at now. Lost a little bit more ground. A few more reds have popped up there. We're looking at all across the board now in the 10-year, not being competitive in the 10-year. And so when we get to the recommendations and we talk about addressing the experience and the way Litchfield does experience compared to how the peer group is doing experience, that would take care of that red column on the end if we made some adjustments to experience. The next group we're going to go into is going to be the certified and related services. So it's going to include your teachers, all your OT, PTs, all that staff is going to be within this peer group. And it's going to be the same process for this one as well. So we'll start off with the starting base. Not a lot of different positions in here, but when you look at this one, you only have one that was running below, and then you have some that are near, and the rest of them are running above. So this group is looking pretty decent. When you look at education, not too bad on education. It's above the median. As a matter of fact, at the master's and master's plus 30, a little below the median at doctorate. That was the one that was adjusted. But overall in education still looks pretty good. Percentage though, you'll see that with the teachers, it looks even worse on the percentage when you do the percentage as a whole of the total salary. So in terms of how the experience is being recognized, and that has a lot to do with the teacher's salary schedule and how it's structured. So I'm going to go over that in one of the recommendations as well. But you can see at 3 years, your total salary, the total offer that you're getting is really only 0.7% higher than someone with 0 years of experience when you're looking at total salary offered. So this is where you were last year. Green almost completely across the board, except for that doctorate was running yellow. Now, for the next one, before I flip to the next slide, I am going to tell you that a lot of what happens on the next slide is not in relation to what the district has done, but what other districts have done with this employee group. I want to circle back to Tolleson, the schedule that they just approved a few weeks ago is included in here. Tolleson, the starting base for a teacher was about 41,289 when we're looking at them last year. Just a few weeks ago, they kicked that up to 52,500. They have jumped up to number 2 in the peer group. The only one that's still offering more for a teacher with a bachelor's degree is Agua Fria. But Tolleson has passed you guys now. They've passed a lot of people because they were near the middle bottom of the peer group. And now with their recent change, they are now number 2 in the peer group. So that has caused a bump down for you guys as well. And this is what you're looking at, is that now you're only highly competitive at the bachelor's. When we get into masters, you are still competitive. So there's no red. I mean, you are still competitive. You're still in the middle third. And that's, if I was going to play with the colors, that's more of a yellow green, like you missed green by 1. So if Tolleson doesn't do their move, this is actually all green if Tolleson didn't do what they just did. So you're just missing being in the top third because of Tolleson passing you across the board. But it is still competitive across the board. It's just not as great of a picture as what it looked like last year, not as great of a picture as it looked like just 3 weeks ago. All right, so now we're going to get into the recommendations. The first recommendation is for all those positions that are running below median. They're significantly less this year than what they were last year, but for all those positions that are running below median, to actually bring those up to the median for the peer group. And then experience, to go ahead and address experience and make it more in line with the peer group, where it's 1% per year up through 6 years, to get more in line with how the peer group is recognizing experience. On education, you could make some slight adjustments to the teacher, but for the teachers on the certified, you see it is pretty much in line with the peer group. It's not too bad. But the doctorate, I would say the doctorate for all exempt should be honored. So when you're looking at your administrators and even your classified exempt, again, it's not usually an expectation that they hold the doctorate. If the doctorate is something that makes them be more effective at their position, it would be worth honoring the doctorate when bringing them in. We're in education, we should definitely honor education. So that's definitely an area to go ahead and look at. These ones are going to be a little bit more complicated, but I kind of want to talk a little bit more, and I've talked with staff, about this recommendation, so they know my full take on this. But the way you're running the teachers right now, it did get simplified. So that was definitely a good improvement from last year, where I felt like only the math teachers could understand how much they were going to get when their contract was going to come to them last year. But then you guys did make those simplification changes, and that's great. So it is easier to understand now. But to me, the issue still remains that with all of the items that are writing outside the actual base, and the percentage increase is only given on the actual base, that now that the total salary being offered is significantly lower and really not even given parity with your other employee groups. So my recommendation is that those should be embedded into the base. Obviously I think the community, the staff would expect that if you ever lost your M&O override, you would have to make adjustments. I don't think it really needs to be written out separately to show them what the impact of that adjustment would be. Instructional improvement fund, if that ever went away, you'd have to make adjustments. So some of the things that are writing outside the base, I think it kind of goes without saying that if those funding sources ever dry up, the district will have to make some decisions, whether that is reduce compensation, reduce positions. Obviously, if a funding source ever dries up, you're expecting that conversation to be had. I don't think it's benefiting you to have it outside the base. So the recommendation is to have that embedded in the base. And then if you make the changes for experience to do the percent increases with experience, then that number is also getting increased by that percentage, because now it'll be in the base as opposed to writing outside the base. So let's say if you're getting $4,000 and that's actually higher than what I think you guys have in there, but for the M&O override, the 1% increase at the 3-year mark is not being applied to that $4,000 right now. And I'm saying that $4,000 should be rolled into the base, and the percentage should be given on top of that number as well as being a part of their total salary. So again, I had this conversation with staff as well. The support staff bands, so kind of highlighted this a lot more in last year's presentation. but it's just so they can understand the hierarchy. So just creating that band structure so they can understand the hierarchy. If your position title says specialist, you know, you should kind of know, okay, well, I'm a specialist, so I stand right here in the hierarchy, and you shouldn't have like a clerk and a specialist and an assistant all kind of like up and down around the same levels in the hierarchy. So like the title should mean something to let you know where you're at within the hierarchy. Now, this last one, I really just want to bring in light of some of the things that are happening around you. So it's not that I'm seeing this here in Litchfield. There's been several districts within your peer group who have made significant changes recently. There's been other districts outside your peer group who are also making significant changes, who are already passing significant changes for next year. Their financial position, to me, doesn't look to be in line with the changes that they're making. And so my only caution, and you guys have a great CFO, so I know he'll look out for you guys on this one, but my only caution is you do have to also, when balancing this out, yes, you want to be competitive, but when some districts are jumping somewhat above their means, to not get caught chasing after them on that path, and to also bring it back into context, we have things such as, you know, the Prop 123 fiscal cliff. We have, you know, the 75 million that's being handed out to districts right now. That's going to stop in a couple of years. All those triggers within Prop 123 are going to come into play if you know the economic triggers are met. Then we have base level getting frozen. You have the federal fiscal cliff from all the ESSER dollars going away. I mean, that'll eventually dry up. That's going to hit people. I'm not worried about AEL this year. I know it's the big push. Yes, absolutely. They need to get in there, get it done. Realistically, I can't see them not exempting the AEL this year, but that is always going to still be out there until we have a permanent fix and a reset. AEL will always be a threat. And it is a very significant threat because it takes a significant amount of funding from school districts, and it does it at the tail end of the year when you don't have time to react. So it's always going to be a big threat to have to worry about. ADM, you guys should always be watching your ADM projections. And I know Litchfield has a great standing with the community, but always, you know, be mindful of your voter support as you're making all this. So just some things to be conscious of when you're deciding where to make these moves. And I know staff will continue to work on that with you through study sessions, but it's kind of a balancing act. You want to make sure all of your employees feel valued, they feel honored, that you're offering competitive salaries across the board, but you also want to make sure you're doing the fiscal responsibility, make sure the district's in a good situation as well too. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, but you guys got a great team here. I know they'll help you through it. But with that, I can take any questions.
Okay, before we get started, so just some procedural things to make this go easier. I'm just going to go down the line and call on everybody, and you'll have a chance to speak and ask your questions or whatever, and we'll give everybody the opportunity to do that afterwards. I'll go through again in case anybody has any follow-up questions or comments that they want to make based on what they've heard from everybody. Just so that we can keep this moving, if we can try to keep our comments and questions initially to about 4 minutes apiece, that way we can get through this big agenda tonight and hopefully we can keep moving at a good pace. But I would like to open up to Mr. Honak. Do you have any questions for us? We'll start with you.
Thank you. No, I don't.
Okay. Ms. Clymer.
First, thank you very much. You made this really easy to understand. It's a lot of information and a lot of numbers, but thank you for the simplicity of the presentation. A couple of questions. So this might be for the administration, and if so, we'll talk about that at a later time. But recently, over the last several years, because of the way our placement chart currently works, and I know the recommendation is to simplify and to move away from that, and we probably will get there. We have made exemptions for employees, right, that are coming to us that are already starting off of our placement chart. So we already have sort of salary exemptions in place. This isn't taken into account here, obviously. So as we adjust for this compensation study, how do we logistically do that, since so many of our employees are on exemptions and aren't actually paid based on our placement chart?
Yes, Member Clymer, Madam President. Staff will be working out the specifics of that with you, but I'll just say in general, once you start making adjustments to the placement chart, if you have hard to fill stipends are still pretty common across most districts. So if it's a hard to fill area, you're probably still going to need the stipend to help make sure that you're going to get people into those hard to fill areas. Some of the other adjustments that you may be making may become unnecessary once you make adjustments to the chart. But that is a piece that staff will be working out with you in future sessions.
Okay, thank you. I know Member Moran is going to ask you about overall compensation, so I'm going to hold off on that. My last question is, I noticed in the peer group, you had Agua Fria, obviously, which is a high school district, and then the unified districts with their budgeting and school funding being different than us as an as an elementary district. How fair is that comparison, right? I mean, their starting salary is higher, but their funding is also different than ours. So how, I want to be competitive, but it's hard to be competitive when we're not starting at the same starting line. So.
Absolutely, Member Clymer, Madam President, that is an excellent point. I would say from our perspective, yes, it's not fair that some districts are funded higher than others. When you get into talking about, and one of the districts not in your peer group, like a Phoenix Union, massive amounts of desegregation funding, they got loaded up on ESSER dollars. It's not really a level playing ground when you look at everything. However, when we're trying to take this from the eyes of an employee, and let's say I'm a bus mechanic, I'm not really too interested in whether or not it was fair that Agua Fria can pay more than you. I just know that they're paying more than you, and that's where I'm going to take my job. So it's not fair to have to compete with some of the others who have more funding, but it is a valid comparison to look at what they're paying and do your best to try to be competitive with them, because with their close proximity to the district and overlaying the district, they are going to be pulling employees from you.
Sure. Fair point. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions. My first question is, and maybe for an example, if we can look at slide 23, which is the current year summary for the admin pay. I just want to clarify, and I would like for you to verify if this is accurate, that we're in the red on the 10 years experience based on all experience levels, but that's based solely on our placement chart. That does not reflect actual salaries that our folks are getting paid.
Absolutely. So Member Moran, Madam President, this is a comparison of placement. We did not take in actual salaries for all the districts. If we were to do that, it would vary, just because if I'm comparing, let's say at your director, you might have a director of transportation who only has 3 years of experience. If I pulled in a comp from another district and their director has 12 years of experience, they would be getting paid more, but the expectation would also be that, yes, of course, they're getting paid more. They have more experience. So the comparisons are always done based on the placement charts. But in terms of current employee versus current employee, or your current employee's ability to go to another district, and especially with what we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years, where the raises, and of course with inflation and everything else, they had to be, but the raises have been a little bit more generous than what you're seeing in placement charts and how they're awarding experience. So what it doesn't take into account is if you have an employee with 5 years of experience and they've received the raises that you've given out the last 4 years, how does that compare to what they would receive in another district for 5 years of experience? Because have your internal raises outpaced that other district's movement on the placement chart and their increases to the placement chart? So yes, it is a placement chart to placement chart comparison to come up with all of these numbers and comparisons and analysis.
Okay. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because I don't want our current employees to look at this and say, if I have 10 plus years of experience, I'm underpaid, because that's not what this is saying.
Absolutely.
Correct?
That is not what this is saying
Okay.
at all.
Great. So don't go looking for jobs, people that are in these red areas, because this is not reflective of your actual salary. My next question is related to just the placement charts in general. We seem to be lacking in the 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And is that a function of the fact that our placement charts only go up to 6 years? And so we're not addressing those other years, and other districts do have data for that? Again, I'm just trying to see, are we really behind in the 10 years, or is it just our placement charts are behind?
Absolutely. Member Moran, Madam President, it's your placement charts are behind. it would take more data to find out if you're overall still lagging behind. We'd have to compare the actual raises given to returning employees. So if we made an assumption of this is where everybody was placed with 6 years of experience, how much raises have they received in the past 4 years? And then now, if they started with 6 and they have 10 now, how does that compare? That would be another level of analysis. But this is looking at placement charts. And the reason why you're falling behind on the placement charts when you get to the 7 through 10 is, yes, because a lot of your peers are recognizing 7 through 10. And even the ones that are going through 6 are doing so at a higher percentage. So they are doing more in line with the 1% per year. And so they're getting out to 6%, even at the 6-year mark. And that's when they're catching you. And then the 7 through 10, now everybody else who continues to do additional percentages is now passing you as well.
Okay, so really here we're talking about the attracting new teachers, not retaining, because our actual salaries to our teachers and admin are more than likely competitive or are more competitive. We're just strictly talking about placement charts.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Madam President. We are talking about placement charts. The assumption for the reason why, and then whether it was me conducting the study or one of the other groups that do this work, the reason why placement charts are looked at pretty extensively is because the idea is that if they originally start off being placed higher, then they will continue to grow at a higher pace and then be outpacing you. But the analysis is completely on placement charts, so we don't have that level of detail to be able to see, like, okay, well, based on if they've been in the district so many years, how would that raise compare to the other districts and what they've been able to do on the raise? I will tell you, just from your longstanding reputation and where you guys have been with certified, I know you still stay strong on certified, even with Tollerson's recent move. You guys are still strong on certified. The change you just made on your classified hourly is going to keep you competitive on the classified hourly. There's only a few districts who are able to do a matching change. So you look at Kyrene, who's a very good comp for you guys. Kyrene, also did a corresponding move that was very similar to yours. So overall, you're competitive. You're almost across most of the group, all employee groups. You're going to be near that top third. And so that's what you see. You see a lot of green. You see some yellow. Some of that yellow was really just off of being green. It wasn't that far away. And these are on placement charts. So you are competitive. I wouldn't say that in all cases you're highly competitive. There are some areas where it could be tweaked. And so the recommendations are more along those lines of, these are some tweaks to just kind of get you a little bit more competitive.
Okay, can I ask one more question? Because of the fact that this is salary, and like you said, we have other pieces of compensation that aren't included in this. I know one thing that I would like us to be able to look at when it comes to the actual budget process is total compensation. So including our benefits, what we pay for medical currently, dental, et cetera, as well as paid days off, and our other, if it's possible to look at stipends as well, average stipends by position, I think that would be interesting to see as well, because I think we need to look at total compensation, not just salary. If there's some things that we can shift from total compensation that aren't getting us the bang for our buck, meaning the attracting and retaining the quality teachers that we want, salary always speaks volume. So if we can shift some things over from some benefits that might not be actually getting us people in the door and keeping people here that we want, and we could give them more in their take-home pay, I'd like to look at some options for that.
Okay, Mr. Owens? Yes, if you have any questions, go right ahead.
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Now I'm going to go back through and see if anybody had anything else they want to say. Mr. Honak, do you have any additional, do you have any comments based on what was said so far?
No, actually, the presentation is very good and it was very clear, and it shows the difference of what we had before. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer?
Just one follow-up. It's really for the administration. You asked what are, as we move forward, we want to see in the next study session. I think the recommendation specifically of adding more things to our base, we have been we have purposely not done that for a myriad of reasons that we won't go into tonight. But so I think really helping us to understand how that would look and what the recommendations of what pieces to put in there. And I know Michael is joining us electronically as well, but like financially, where does that put us? Because it's a whole different sort of take on how we've been doing this. And so as we look at increases and things like that moving forward, obviously 1% on this base versus 1% on that base is completely different. And we've always looked at it as base is just that. It's your base. Our override and other dollars are not part of the base because they're not a consistent funding source, as we've seen recently. So anyway, just I'm very interested in that recommendation. So for the staff, I'd love to see which part of that we could move and what that actually looks like financially.
Ms. Moran.
Yeah, I just would like to be crystal clear on one other issue or item, which is going back to that same slide. So if we as a board, this is what I think would happen. If we as a board decide, okay, yeah, we want to make an adjustment to the placement chart, we want to extend that out to 10 years, and that's going to increase that and make us in the highly competitive or competitive market range, that does not mean that those folks with 10 years plus who are already part of our LESD family are going to get an increase, because they may already be above that based on the history that we have.
Member Moran, Madam President, the dashboard actually allows for both scenarios. So it allows for some increases to be increases that are just for the placement chart, as well as increases that are going to be for both the placement chart and for returning staff. In most cases, I would say my recommendation is usually whatever you're going to do for the placement chart to also do for returning staff. And the reason for that is just to make sure that there aren't any jump overs. And so what I mean by jump over is, let's say you have somebody who just came to you this year, they have 10 years of experience. And now they're going to work for the district. They're going to have 11 years of experience when you go into next contract year. And you've just made a significant increase to where you're going to place somebody with 10 years of experience. Somebody new comes to you with 10 years of experience. They get a significantly higher salary. And now you're going to have your employee who's been with you for a year. They have 11 years experience. And like, why are you hiring somebody new that's making more than me? I have more experience and I've already been with you for a year. So typically my recommendation is that if it's going to vary, to make sure that it varies in a way where you don't allow for jump overs. Jump overs were very common around the time of the Great Recession, and shortly after the Great Recession. It was a major sticking point. It was a big hurdle that a lot of districts had to get through. So you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you would create that again.
Okay. Agreed. That sounds very fair to me. I just don't want anyone to get the false impression that if we're changing the placement charts, everyone's getting a raise based on that. That's what I really want to avoid. The impression.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Owens. Okay. I would want the same thing as Ms. Clymer. I would like to see what that looks like to us roll all those different variable in like pays into one as their base salary, just to see what that looks like. I've always felt like we need to try and make it as simple as possible. And so if we can at least look at that and then see what that looks like as far as financially for us, I would like to see that as we're moving forward in our budget talks. But other than that, I don't have any other questions for you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very, very informative and easy to follow along.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is community opportunity for comment. I will read this disclaimer and then call everyone up individually. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. We have 3 individuals who have submitted a request, and our first individual will be Mary McGee.
Good evening, Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning, everyone that took time out of their evening to be here tonight. I'm Mary McGee, a bus driver for LESD, also a very hard worker for Litchfield School District Transportation. I am here tonight because LESD will move to terminate me. I supposedly violated by eating a banana while driving. I have yet to see what I've been accused of. I do suffer from migraines, and eating something is the only way to.
Can you please speak into the microphone so that you can be heard? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I have no downtime between the runs like everyone else does. It was brought to my attention on January 12th that my cert number had been pulled by DPS. My boss, Mr. White, turned me into DPS. This happened on the 10th, stating that I was endangering fellow employees. Yet I was allowed to drive till the 12th of January. Mr. White was so concerned about me endangering anyone that he kept me on as a driver for 2 more days. Why wasn't I removed immediately? The important factor here is that I was dealing with workplace harassment for over a year. I've gone to Mr. White, the superintendent before Dorothy, and Dorothy herself to no avail. I do believe this is why I'm being terminated. There was a life taken by one of our very own drivers. There has been numerous incidents while kids were present on the bus. The people are still employed with Litchfield School District. I'm not saying they were at fault, but that was a lot more serious than eating a banana. I was also badgered by staff members. Confidentiality was broken by these members. Everyone is still employed. No write-up for Mary, just fired. What is wrong with Litchfield today? This is not the Litchfield way. You have taken my livelihood from me. 1 year. I lose my cert for 1 year. I was always told I was family. Thank you, Litchfield. My boss knows I care for my father with dementia. I needed my income. Yet again, no warning, no write-up, just fired. I ask that you do not rule in favor of my termination. I would like to stay on as a monitor till I can get my cert back. I was told no. This tells me it goes beyond the banana. And there's more to this. I was there I made myself available through COVID, the shortage of drivers.
Miss McGee, I'm sorry, but your time is up. Our next speaker is going to be Michael Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. Mike Finnegan. Ready or not, here we are in a new calendar year. You have to know where you've been to get where you wish to be. The teaching profession crisis, according to Steve Watson, Arizona's superintendent of education, stated over 30,000 teachers are stressed, burned out, and dissatisfied with their profession. School campus leadership is contributing to burnout by handing down more and more new work programs. On January 11th, 2022, Watson requested school administrations suspend new initiatives and relax professional development schedules. A lot of people here in this room attended that meeting. LASD's response to Watson's January 11th Zoom meeting was LASD administration passed on Watson's offer to conduct a customized evaluation of stress for the LASD district free of charge. LASD administration also ignored his suggestion to suspend new initiatives. Instead, they introduced a new iReady math program with a steep new learning curve and training. LASD introduced 1,500 new Chrome notebooks into classrooms with expectations that they can increase academic proficiency by 20 points, another steep learning curve initiative for both teachers and students. They introduced Illuminate, a new data system to be implemented and learned. They're piloting 2 new programs with 13 math specialists and a new district math director. There's been a tremendous increase in stipends. Superintendent Gunning explains stipends are for activities and duties of teachers in addition to their position requirements. She also said teachers are asked by the administration to do a lot more in their day than they have hours for. No wonder then why teachers are stressed out. The teacher situation at LASD. Certified personnel at LASD are continuously requesting the release of their contract and resignation. Teachers and staff are being let go for unprofessional conduct. 14 principals and 502 teachers out of 508 possible teachers were evaluated as highly effective and therefore entitled to $4,000 performance award. Seems like the evaluation system is being gamed. The 2023 school board's focus should be on the teaching profession's crisis at LASD concerning stress and burnout from new program initiatives and professional development. With a new job fair in February imminent and trying to fill long unfilled special ed positions, these issues, teacher stress, too many initiatives, and teacher contract unprofessionalism is critical to the reputation of this school district. If leadership is not held accountable, then they have no incentive to change what needs to be changed.
Our last speaker is going to be Melissa O'Neill.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Melissa O'Neill. I'm a district employee at Maple Paget, and I'm also a district resident. I sent the governing board an email last night regarding the liquidated damages clause, and I guess I'm kind of piggybacking on Mike Finnegan's statement. I want to address the board and the district about the liquidated damages clause that's being proposed. Before it's approved, I would ask for you to really look at the underlying issue, which is why are teachers leaving? Why are we leaving? Do teachers feel safe at school? Do they feel supported? Do teachers have what they need to do their job to the best of their abilities? I'm not leaving, but my guess would be the answer is no. I know this because I felt this before in my 16-year career. Not new. Been here before, and I'm still here, but some years, oh man, I've been ready to toss in the towel. I don't know a single teacher who starts the school year with the intent to quit mid-year. I don't know a single person. Nobody does. You can't put a price on the mental health and well-being of teachers, which is what will happen. You'll force teachers to stay in a position where they are in constant crisis because they cannot afford to leave and pay the damages. Is that what we want? Is that our goal? I don't think so. The contract also that we always sign in about February will not include any information pertinent to making a sound financial decision for myself and my family. Will I receive any type of raise? Can't answer that yet. Will I be paying to cover my medical benefits? That discussion hasn't even begun and leaves many questions unanswered. With all of those questions in mind, it doesn't seem fair to have teachers sign vague contracts and then penalize them for not agreeing to the changes the board approves at a much later date. I just think that a better approach would be, how can we truly retain these teachers instead of how can we penalize them for leaving a job they probably didn't intend to leave when the year started. Thank you.
That's the last of our speakers. So the next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda items.
Excuse me, could I comment? I think it's legal to see if I'll hold my comment about putting something on the agenda, but I will hold that off because I'm not sure.
Okay. Then we are going to move on to the consent agenda. I will start by asking, does anyone have anything on the consent agenda that they would like to either ask a question about or have pulled off? Ms. Clymer?
No.
Ms. Moran?
I have a question about item 6J.
Mr. Owens? Mr. Honak?
I'm sorry. I was actually distracted because I didn't want to violate the open meeting law, but I believe that it's fair game to ask that we consider putting something on the agenda based on what we heard from the public. Is there anybody there that knows if that's correct, if that is allowed by the open meeting law?
Hold on, our attorney's going to come answer the question since she's here with us. Just 1 second. If you can make sure, sorry, I know somebody can hand you a mic so we can make sure that he can hear you clearly.
Thank you. Board members, I'm Carrie O'Brien from Gus Rosenfeld. So,
Can you, yeah, please, sorry, please talk super close to the mic and like with a teacher voice. That's what they keep telling me.
okay, I'll use my mom voice. Okay. This one? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, so the open meeting law at the conclusion of the public comment does allow a board member to request that an item be put on a future agenda. And it sounds like that's what Mr. Honak is requesting.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. That answered my question. And based upon that, I would, I see that teacher contract is later on the agenda, but I would like, I think we should consider putting on the agenda, specifically somehow, seeing how, following up on Steve Watson's thing, what is really bothering teachers? Because teachers are our treasure. I mean, our students are our charge, but we spend an awful lot of time looking at graphs about financial things, but I know that people don't become teachers to become millionaires, generally speaking. They do it because they have a passion for the future of our youth, who very quickly become our citizens. So I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I feel that that's something as a board we really should put on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Honak would like us to discuss at a future agenda. My understanding is why teachers are leaving, teacher burnout, Steve Watson's stuff that he did. If you guys.
Yeah, pretty much teacher satisfaction, how we could, how do address the negative side and then maybe also accentuate the positive side of things that maybe we could be doing that cost nothing. Thank you. That's pretty much it.
Okay, we'll put that on our list for future agenda item topics. Did you have anything, Mr. Honak, that you wanted to ask a question about or pull off of the consent agenda?
Not really. I have a minor thing of just of the minutes from the last meeting, but it's not worth the trouble. So I don't have any. I'm fine with it as is. leave it to someone else to figure that out.
Okay, Ms. Moran, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, my question is on item 6J, which is the certified personnel employment position change with new contract salary exception. And my question is regarding the preschool teacher, which is part of the community ed at Barbara Roby. I know we've had discussions previously regarding preschool and hiring credentialed teachers. Can you refresh my memory on, I couldn't tell from the resume if this was a credentialed teacher or a certified teacher. Can you refresh my memory as to where we currently stand on that? I don't believe we made it policy or a regulation or anything to only hire credentialed teachers, but can you tell me more about this position that we're hiring? Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Moran. Our first goal is to hire credentialed teachers. So Dr. Stair works diligently to find credentials teachers who are qualified and who meet our criteria to be a teacher. In this case, there were no credentialed teachers, and so that is why we went with a certified staff member.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions and nothing to pull off, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will second.
Okay, sorry, one more procedural thing. I'm going to do a roll call vote so we make sure everybody is having their vote, like we can hear everybody's vote out loud, so we make sure that everybody's vote is being accurately reflected in the minutes. So Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mr. Honak,
Aye.
and myself, Ms. Zeidema is an aye. Motion passes. We are now going to move on to the next section of the agenda, which is our action discussion items. And first up is going to be the approval of Community Education Department tuition rates for 23-24 school year, and that is going to be by Dr. Stair.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the governing board. I know you have a packed agenda tonight, and so I'm not going to try to belabor this at all. It's that time of year when we're about to open registration for preschool for next year, and then in March we'll be opening registration for extended day for next year, and so we need to be considering rates. I'm proposing tonight that we increase our extended day PM only tuition by 16% and most other extended day tuition rates by 6%. I'll give a little bit more detail about that in just a minute. I'm also proposing that we alter our registration fee schedule to a per child fee with a maximum per family fee limit for both preschool and extended day. Right now it's on a per family basis. And then I'm also proposing that we begin charging tuition for preschool camps during fall and spring breaks. And currently we don't. We just count it as part of their regular tuition. And so I'll start with preschool here. Right now, both preschool and extended day are being supplemented by the Child Care Stabilization Grant. And that goes away in May, and the funding stops in June. We have to have it all spent by next September. And so concerning preschool, with the recent increase in preschool tuition and our enrollment is up, cost savings related to staff changes have been a good thing. Our preschool revenue is currently exceeding staffing costs by nearly 20% each month. And we know that costs are going up, and that that next year will be more expensive than this year. But even without the additional grant funding, we're doing pretty well in preschool now. Fall and spring break preschool camps have always been offered as included in the cost of full day tuition, but our rates are based on 180 days. And so they pay the same amount every month. Basically, they pay 1/10 of 180 days. They pay for 18 days every month, but we're giving away these 2 weeks in addition. So really they're getting 190 days, but paying for 180. It's not a huge cost drain because it's only offered at one school. We're talking maybe 20 kids, a couple of aides for that week. But it's also money that we don't necessarily need to be giving away. Just kind of as a side note, what happens is since it's not any additional charge, lots of families will register their child, but then the child never shows up, but we have staffed for those children to be there. And so if they're going to have to pay for them, they're probably going to be the ones coming are going to be the ones who actually need it. Despite anticipated increases in costs and possible cost sharing measures with extended day, which I'll talk about in just a minute, we don't anticipate that we're going to need a tuition increase in the fall. And of course, if something drastic happens, if costs increase quite a bit, then we can revisit that in the fall. But at the moment, it doesn't look like we're going to need to do that. We'll be sitting pretty comfortably, even when the grant money goes away. One thing I would note is that in the peer mentor classes, and I'll explain those just really briefly in case you weren't around when those were instituted, but those are classes where half the students have special needs. They have an IEP, half the students don't. We keep those classes small on purpose. And the idea is that the students with special needs have typical peer modeling. One block that we've run into is that not a lot of people are interested in signing their kids up for the PM version of that class. Our AM class is still up, but PM, we have all the kids with some special needs there, but they don't have many of the typical peer models. We share those costs with special ed. And so we feel like it would be reasonable to give a discount for coming in the PM and try to increase the enrollment in those classes. Concerning extended day, again, the Child Care Stabilization Grant is supplementing extended day, and with those funds, we're in the black, but without those funds, we would not be. Depending on the month that we're talking about, some months, you have higher staffing or lower enrollment, but it'd be between 14 and 17% in the red if it weren't for that grant. And of course, since costs are expected to increase for next year, I feel a reasonable budget adjustment target would be 18%. And that doesn't mean that we need to raise tuition by 18%. It just means we need to either lower costs and or raise tuition in order to meet that 18% adjustment target. I mentioned here that extended day enrollment has steadily increased because that partially mitigates this. There are those economies of scale where as you get more kids, you don't necessarily have to add the same amount of staff. And so we do save some money when enrollment goes up. And so it's up 28% from January of last year, which is great news. So these are some planned and proposed revenue increasing and saving measures. I say planned because some of these are not necessarily board actions. They're just administrative things that we do. And then some of these are things that I've actually proposed today. One of those is just how we calculate who pays for the overhead costs for the gals in the community ed office who do registration and enrollment, for coaching services, for who pays the bills, basically. Right now, 2/3 of that is extended day, 1/3 is preschool. We're going to change that to half and half, and that will shift things to the extended day revenue by about 3% without severely impacting preschool. I'm proposing we also have preschool reimbursed extended day for the 155 preschoolers who are eligible to attend. Right now, we don't. Extended day doesn't get any of that money. And so it's just an accounting thing where we're shifting money that parents are paying for the service, but extended day will be getting part of it. And that'll make about a 2% difference in our extended day revenue. I mentioned before, as part of the proposal, charging a per child registration fee rather than per family. That is typical in other districts. In fact, ours was the only district I could find that charges per family. It's about a 0.5% difference, but it's also a 0.5% difference in preschool. And so it levels it out on both sides. This is the big one, raising extended day PM only tuition by 16%. I think it'd be fair to ask, why wasn't this an issue before? And that is because previously over half of our enrollment was at AM, PM rate, kids who were enrolled to come in the morning and the afternoon. And that's actually at a higher hourly rate. You know, we figure things starting with what are we going to charge per hour? And then we extrapolate that into a monthly rate. We charge a higher AM, PM rate because AM services are more expensive to give. It's harder to meet those staff to student ratios in the morning because of some licensing rules. And so we have to have more staff compared to the kids. And so we charge more for AM services, but there's been a shift in our clientele, if you will, where nearly 54% of them are now the PM only rate. And that's a very low hourly rate. We've never really adjusted that except for just the percentage increases that we've done every year. And so just for example, our hourly rate for PM only tuition right now is about $2.67 an hour, whereas AM PM is about $3.40 an hour. So you can see there's a big difference in those. And so our PM only tuition needs to come way up. When I checked surrounding districts and comparable districts, in fact, it's almost the same list as our presenter earlier gave. I found that the median was $223 for a PM only rate, and we're charging $191 right now. And so the 16% tuition increase for PM only would bring us up to $222, right near that median. And I suspect, you know, all the other districts are raising their rates. I suspect we'll still need to adjust that in the future, but it's a big raise all at once, a big increase all at once. And that would be starting in August. And then that would result in about a 9% increase in the overall extended day revenue. Again, it's just a demographic shift and we need to adjust for it. Also raise the other extended day rates by about 6%. The only one that I'm not proposing that we change is our AM only rate. Those are kids who are enrolled just to come in the morning. Right now, I think it's about 16 kids district-wide. And it's a very expensive rate right now. It's over $5 an hour at that rate. So we probably don't need to change that. It's underutilized anyway. So, but all the other rates, raising them by 6%, and that would make about a 2% difference in our extended day tuition revenue. And then finally, charge a monthly fee for families to maintain drop-in registrations. Those are families who they're not part of a regular program. They just say, we want our kids to be able to come this day or that day. Our problem is we have to staff for that. There are any number of kids who could come on any given day, especially those early release days. Seems like they all show up on the early release days. And so I'm proposing that we charge a $25 a month maintenance fee to stay on that drop-in only status. And that way we can start paying for the staffing that we have to maintain for it. Any questions about that before I move on? I know that was a whole lot.
Ms. Clymer, any questions on what he said so far?
No, I'll save mine to the end. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
I do have a question for the drop-in folks. So the $25 is just kind of like a retainer in a way.
That's correct. Yeah.
What rate do they pay per hour?
They pay $22 per day.
Per day.
Per
Okay.
day, yeah.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Owens?
No questions.
Mr. Honak, any questions so far?
No, I thought it was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, please continue.
Thank you. So timeline wise, our registration is opening in February for preschool. I'm not proposing a preschool increase, and so that's probably not too big a deadline for us, but our extended day registration opens on March 20th. We'd like to have rates in place ideally before that opens. We have opened registration without firm rates in place before, and it's possible, but the ideal would be to have them in place by then.
Thank you. So with that, does anybody go ahead, Ms. Clymer? You said you had questions, so.
Yeah, we've been here before many times, and I know we're no more comfortable raising rates today than we were before. Thank you very much for all the information. I understand the financial impact on the district, and we need to do what we need to do. I will just voice my support for continuing to separate financially preschool and extended day. It may just be an accounting sort of here and there, but it's important for you and for us to be able to see what the bottom line is, right? It's funny that this is flip-flopped because I think 2 or 3 years ago, community ed was carrying preschool. And now we sort of see that the other way. So, just because, like you said, demographics changes, parents' needs change. As kids get older and go through our program, their needs change. And so I think it's important for us to be able to see where those financial impacts lie. So I appreciate you continuing to separate that, and I encourage you to continue to do that. One thing that's not mentioned on here that I want to understand the financial impact of is our employee discount for extended day in preschool. I don't know that it really matters for preschool because we're not changing those rates, but what is that currently? And do those change with rate changes? Is that a dollar amount per month that they're awarded as a percentage, or how does that work when our overall rates change?
So employees get a 20% discount. And so if we change our rates, they go up for them too, but then we take 20% off of the new rate.
Okay, so their benefit is still there, but it just increases because we've had to increase the overall
That's correct.
percentage of that. Okay, I understand. I had one more question. I apologize. Oh, what currently are the registration fees per family, and what are you requesting that they be per child and that family maximum? So what's the difference in that?
Oh, I should have brought that. So, so for preschool, it's more expensive because there are more steps. So I think it's $50 to register a preschooler. And then it's summer camp is $20, and then extended day is $42. And so we're proposing a maximum, I believe it is $94. And that would be if you had a preschooler and 2 kids in extended day. And there's not many families that enroll any more than that. So we're proposing a maximum per family fee of $94, so that the family with a lot of kids wouldn't be cost prohibitive for them to enroll in our programs. But right now it's not coming close to paying for the administrative staff necessary to process all those registrations. So we just want to remedy that.
Yeah, and that's just an annual fee.
They
They pay at the beginning of every
year.
Every time to register.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. I'm sad that we're here again and have to continue to raise the rates, but I also think that our preschool program and our extended day program are worth it. And I think our parents continue to choose us versus other people, not just for the cost. And so I think we need to make sure that we can maintain that staffing. So.
Ms. Moran.
Yes. So one thing that I would love to see in the communicating of this out to our families is when I read this and I was on slide 2 and it says increase of 16%, I thought, oh dear God, that's a lot. But then when I got to the dollar amount and I saw that's $31 a month, my heart rate then settled back down.
Right,
So
yeah.
I would love to see 16% and then maybe in a parentheses, the actual like $31 so
For
that,
sure.
it's clear that it might seem high, but it's actually not as high as it could be because you got to know what that base number is. But that's not really my question. That's more of a comment. My question, just for clarification, is I know we talked about this last time that you presented to us and we went for the preschool increase, which is that we wanted to see more of a smoothing of the increase in rates with the grant funding going away. And it sounds like you incorporated that in here. I just would like some verification of that you're keeping that in mind.
I'm sorry, what are you asking for me to verify?
I'm asking for you to verify that that this increase today is taking into account the phasing out of that grant money or
That's
the
correct.
end date of the grant money. And we're not going to see a big jump at one point in time. We're going to see some smaller increases to get us to where we need to be when that grant money is gone.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Owens, do you have any questions? Mr. Honak, do you have any questions?
Sorry, I had to get back to the Zoom. I was looking at the items. No, I don't. Thank you.
I also do not have any questions, so I believe we need a motion on this.
I move to approve the community ed department tuition rates for 2023, 2024 as presented.
I will second.
Okay. I will now do our voting. Mr. Honak, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
I am also an aye, so motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stair.
Next up on the agenda is going to be the employee contract language and work agreement language, and this is going to be presented by Ms. Reichs.
Good evening, President Zaidama, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, and meeting attendees. This evening, we bring forward school year 23-24 employment contract language and work agreement language for your approval. Our school legal counsel made updates to these documents and added graduated liquidated damages to all contracts per governing board discussion that was held on in December 2022. Our school attorney, Carrie O'Brien, is also here this evening to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'm just going to have us again start down the line if there's any questions about the contracts or if you have any comments. I will start with Mr. Honak. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I looked through it. I think it's in line with what we were considering and discussing and recommending. So I don't have any questions.
Okay, Ms. Clymer?
I don't have any legal questions or otherwise on the document specifically, but I did want to address the liquidated damages and the sort of missing information, if you will, from the contracts, because I do think it's a valid concern and one that was brought up earlier this evening by one of our public speakers. I was a proponent of liquidated damages. I still am. I think the majority of this board were, which is why they are in the contract. And while it may seem as if it is punitive in nature for people that are leaving or abandoning their contract, it is not meant to be punitive in nature for people that leave for reasons that are clearly laid out in the contract. So, if you are having a medical emergency, mental health or otherwise, you move from the state or have other extenuating circumstances, by no means are we, or me personally, or this board suggesting that we would penalize those people and make them pay. So the liquidated damages, I realize that most people don't start the year expecting to quit midway. I think we have seen more than probably 36 times this year alone that people have abandoned their contracts for very little reasons. So it is for those people, to me, that we need to be careful that we are running a business. That's what this is. And we have to protect the children that are in their class and the other teachers that are filling the gaps for those teachers that walk out and leave for reasons that are 100% within their control. So I just wanted to clarify that in no way was this meant to be punitive for teachers that are working hard and have something catastrophic or, other family circumstance come up in the middle of the year and they need to leave. It's my understanding that those people will not be held accountable for these damages, nor should they, in my opinion. Also, in terms of the information on the contract, I 100% agree. It's a big ask to say, hey, here's this, for lack of better terminology, a blank contract. I want you to sign it, and then I'm going to penalize you for trying to get out of it. I recognize that and appreciate that we are asking for some faith there to say, in our history at Litchfield, we have, yes, provided teachers with healthy raises when we are able, even sometimes when we're not, to be honest. And, the health benefits, all of these are extremely valid points, extremely valid. And if our budgeting system and deadline for that information was today, I would wholeheartedly put all of that information in these contracts now, and we would solidify this and be done. We don't know how much health insurance is going to cost. We don't know. If we wait 2 months to hand out these contracts and other school districts put out their contracts, which they are doing with little to no information also, we're not the only ones doing that, then we are increasing that competition for teachers that we have poured into and that probably do want to stay in Litchfield, but are unsure because our contracts aren't out yet. So I think they're extremely valid points. And I think we have to work together between staff and our administration and board to say, hey, let's lay out what we think is going to happen and what we hope will happen. And there has to be trust on both sides to say, we're going to do our very best to stick to that. And I hope we as a board can do that and continue to be really transparent and give the information as we have it. So to the speaker's point tonight, people can make the best choices for their family because everybody is different and they are on a different timeline. And whether it's raises or medical benefits or whatever, those things make a pretty significant difference in their life. So I just wanted to speak to that. I don't have any direct questions about it, and I'm fine with the language.
Ms. Moran.
I do have one question for clarification. So when I look at this liquidated damages, newly added verbiage, it has some dates in there. So after June 1st, 500, June 15th to August 1st, 1,000, and after August 1st, 2,000. So just clarify for me, Director Reichs, if we have a teacher who signs this contract or any of these contracts, someone that signs a contract in February, and then we come out as a board with all of our budget information in May, they will not, and they decide to terminate their contract before June 1st, there would be no liquidated damages. Is that correct?
Yes, Board Member Moran, that is correct. That is exactly what that is stated for.
Okay, so teachers will still have flexibility to back out of this if they deem that so necessary once all of the budget discussions are solidified and they know exactly what that compensation will look like for them. Correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
my understanding.
Okay, without any penalties. Great. The other thing I would like to say is just a statement based on part of the motivation behind adding the liquidated damages, which is not only the financial impact that has on the district when we have to replace a teacher mid-year, but the impact that has on the students. This board historically, and I think we still are very much student advocates. And when we have a teacher or any district leader who leaves in the middle of the year, it is negative for students. And we should do what we can to support our teachers so that they don't leave. But for those who are doing it for, other opportunities outside of education and things like that, I think they could probably wait till the end of the school year. You signed a contract, so I would expect you to uphold that, especially when it impacts what is best for students. That's it.
Mr. Owens.
So I wasn't obviously on the board when this was discussed. I remember the discussion about it, and the way it was presented, it did seem that, a resignation by a teacher mid-year had a significant impact on the classroom and the children's development. And so it made a lot of sense to me to, hold those teachers accountable. Knowing that there's, a waiver opportunity if it's deemed appropriate for that teacher or staff member to resign. Knowing, I think, kind of like what Board Member Clymer mentioned, when a teacher decides to take a position or anybody decides to take a job, they weigh the pros and cons. And so there may be things that in every contract that you take or every job that you accept, there's cons, but there's pros. And so you have to weigh that. And that's what the teachers need to do when they accept these contracts and whether they choose to sign them or not. And so while I hate the idea of a teacher or somebody feeling like they're forced to remain in a position, because they might have to pay 500 or 1,000 or lose some income. I think that if it's a true reason and a significant reason for them to resign, then that waiver won't be in it. That waiver will be an opportunity for them to not have to pay that fee. So.
So I just have a couple of comments, mostly about the liquidated damages. Anybody who knows me and has known me for the years I've been involved in this district knows I'm a huge advocate for our teachers. I know that they are the soul of, they are the heart and soul of our schools. They are what makes our students so great. They are what makes this district amazing. So I will be your biggest cheerleader always. But at the end of the day, Ms. Moran is correct. We are here to advocate for our students first. And as a parent who's had teachers leave in the middle of the school year and see how devastating of an impact that has on my child and on all the children in the classroom, and then the staff around them and how the staff's having to pick up the pieces and what that looks like. And especially when you bring in a new teacher middle of the year and it's not the best options because you don't have as many great options as your school year progresses. And sometimes even that teacher doesn't work out. So then they're looking at even more changes and more adjustments for these kids. It's not fair to them. And so I think that I will advocate for our teachers, but I'm going to advocate for our students first and say that we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our educators in the classroom with our kids. And that also means I do think we've got to look at, I don't think Mr. Honak's wrong about seeing what we can do to address what's making people leave in the future. For sure, I would be happy to have a conversation about that, have us look into that and see what we can do. I agree that there are options in the waivers for teachers that are unable to stay or other staff members who have to leave if they need to leave us in the middle of the year for a significant reason. None of us want to penalize people. We just want to make sure that teachers are sticking to what they agree to do. If you sign a contract, you are making a commitment to the students of this district. And so I hope that you're going to stand by that commitment to the best of your ability always. As far as not everything being in the contract, there being some areas where they don't know yet, we're going to be having many conversations over the next month and a half, during which I hope people are paying attention to our budget talks and what we're talking about with health insurance and potential raises and what that looks like. And even though we may not have a solidified budget, they're going to have an idea of where we are headed with that. And so they can use that information also to make their decision to sign their contract, because I don't want anybody to feel like they're forced to sign something. I think that if you don't feel Litchfield's the best place for you, then you should leave. But if you do, then you should stay. And I'm hoping that people will start trying to have positive intent with the board and us to have positive intent with our staff, that we are looking out for our staff as best we can because we know that's what's best for kids. And so I hope that our staff can start to try and have some positive intent and trust in us as a board that we are going to continue to look out for them and look out for our kids. I'm going to go down again. If anybody else, Mr. Honak, did you have anything else?
I'm sorry to take so long to, no, I think we discussed it very well. And I think it is, we've balanced, being compassionate, and we've taken into account, special circumstances. But I think that we addressed something that I think we did a decent job. It's very fair how this is, so that's my comment.
Ms. Clymer?
No, but I'm ready to make a motion. Or are we still going through the question phase? I'm sorry.
Ms. Moran?
The only thing I'd like to add is when it comes to salaries and benefits and all of the pluses, we really want to be competitive and we want to compare ourselves to our peers and we want to have those great things. But then when we look at something like this, we don't want this, we don't like this. But the truth of the matter, based on the information that we received, is that the majority of our peer districts already have this in their contracts. So I don't think it's reasonable to say we want all the good, what's viewed as good, and not the pieces that might not be viewed as positive as some of the others. But I think competitiveness, we need to look at all those aspects together when we're looking at attracting and retaining the best teachers.
Mr. Owens?
I hope I don't put you on the spot. So last year we had teachers resign. How many teachers do we have resign last year? Do you know off the top of your head?
Ooh.
Or staff?
Yeah,
Maybe.
Board Member Owens, that's a great
I know,
question.
sorry.
I don't have it in front of me.
what I'm trying to get to is, out of the people, the teachers, staff, or whatever we had resign last year, how many do we feel like would have been held to this? Yeah.
That's a very good question. I can answer it fairly broadly and say it's a small percentage that would be held to the liquidated damages. Most are in that extraordinary case where they provide documentation to human resources that Superintendent Gunning reviews. So it's fairly small percentage.
Correct. So the way I see this is, this is holding those accountable who basically just kind of abandon their job. And anybody who, other than that, most likely is gonna not have to face the consequences of this.
That would be accurate. Board Member Owens.
Okay, then if someone would like to make a motion,
I move to approve, I apologize, let me look, employee contract language and work agreements for 23-24 as presented.
I'll second.
okay. Mr. Honak, how do you vote?
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah.
I'm also a yay, so the motion passes. Okay, for this next part, we are going to be going into an executive session. So I need a motion, right, Amy, to move into executive session?
I move that we move into executive session to consult with our attorney for legal advice.
I will second.
Okay, Mr. Honak, how do you vote?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so motion passes. We will be in executive session now. Okay, we are going to reconvene the regular meeting and adjourn the executive session. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the revised job description for the superintendent job. And this is going to be led by Ms. Reichs and myself a little, but mostly her.
Good evening. Again, President Zeidema, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, and meeting attendees. Today, I have brought forward a final draft job description for the superintendent position. This includes governing board feedback that was incorporated into this draft. Some of the elements of feedback that we did receive, for example, goals and performance expectations, were not included because it's not part of a standard job description. But I would recommend that that may be considered to relay to the superintendent search firm as you're embarking on that search. That's where that might live. So happy to entertain any questions on that final draft if there are.
Okay, I am going to start with Ms. Clymer. Did you have any questions on the final draft that was proposed?
I don't have any specific questions on the draft. Just wanted to say thank you to the two of you for getting together and trying to compile 4 or 5 different people's comments into one cohesive draft that looks like a job someone might want to do. So it looks like we have gotten there, and despite some things probably falling off and some things getting added, I do think this is a good representation of what we're looking for. And by utilizing a search firm, as you mentioned, we have the opportunity to relay other values and expectations and goals through that doesn't have to be shown directly here. So I think that gives us an added opportunity.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, I actually have 3 questions or comments. The first is related, well, they're all 3 related to the essential functions. The first is related to point number 1. I do not understand what the section "and for the development and interpretation of policy" means. Can you break that down for me, what we're trying to say with that?
One moment, if I may. Board Member Moran. So as I reread that statement, I think we may have a typo. Board Member Moran, I think it would read better if we drop "for" after the word "and." So assumes the duties of Chief Executive Officer of the district and the development and interpretation of policy. And then we address later on through the description that involves governing board direction and feedback.
I'm still not. I guess I'm still not. Am I the only person that sentence just doesn't? I understand the first portion assumes the duties of Chief Executive Officer of the district. I don't understand what the development and interpretation of policy, that might be a sub-function, but there are a million sub-functions under CEO. But if everybody else thinks that sounds great, we can go with that. That part, for some reason, it's not making sense to me to be in that bullet point.
Fair.
Okay. The second point is bullet point number 2, which talks about the conformity with policies, State Department of Ed, federal and state statutes, and bullet point number 26, which says supervises implementation of all laws, regulations, and governing board policies, keeping with federal and Arizona statutes. I feel that 26 is a repeat of 2, or at the very least could be combined with 2. Perhaps if we changed the wording in 2 to say supervises implementation and oversees conformity, oversees district and school conformity with the adopted policies. I feel like we're just repeating that, so I don't have to wordsmith it. Maybe someone can look at that and figure that out. But I think we're saying implementation and supervision twice of the exact same thing. My third point is bullet point number 7, which says ensures all activities regarding the adoption of curriculum are done in a public governing board meeting. I believe that is state statute and does not need to be explicit in this job description. That would be a job duty, not a part of the job description. So I think bullet point number 7 could be eliminated from the functions. That is all my feedback.
Can I respond really quick? Sorry, to your point about 26, right?
Yeah.
That is not supposed, that is from when I was adding stuff and condensing things. So you're right. That is supposed to be a combination of 2 things and bullet point the other one. So 26 could come out. So that was, I think that was my fault.
No problem. Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. Is it a good time?
Yes, Mr. Honak, your turn. Please go.
As to item number 7, ensures all activities regarding the adoption of curriculum are done in a public governing board meeting. That is already by law. What really needs to be done here, though, is ensuring all activities needs to be expanded a little bit, because essentially where we got into trouble with the AZAG and as a district or the board, whatever, violating open meeting law, was that there were committees and that were not, and even when we adopted the $1.8 million, math thing, a lot of that was, all that evaluation was done not in the public. Now, I understand you can't have the public every time a vendor is going to show you, or you're going to go review curriculum, but essentially where I think you cross the line is when essentially the decision has been made, this recommendation comes to the board, and I felt, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, I looked at it and I said, what, I didn't see that there was even a shred of evidence that the thing even worked. Nobody could give me an answer that, yes, it was done over in ABC school district and it raised their scores. And it was just a fait accompli that this is the recommendation and we don't have any other recommendations. And so the governing board just decided, oh, do we need a new math program or not? And voted yes. And it was all delegated out to people that made the choices without anybody in the public really being involved. And I don't mean cherry picking a few people from the public to be on the committee. That's not a public meeting. So and I can tell you right now, I mean, Scottsdale is going through a whole lot of legal nightmares that are way beyond what we're doing in other school districts for doing the same thing. We don't need that. And I don't know what the solution, I don't know exactly how to do it, but we really can't have, a transformational equity work document or something that's sitting there saying, oh, well, we're going to have teachers empowered to, decide that they want some curriculum. And then all of a sudden they're kind of told, well, recommended that they should adopt it by people. And then they're going to sit there and go, oh, I better do this or I won't get rehired. That it's all completely wrong. And it needs to be out in 100% out in the open. Item 7 here says ensures all activities regarding the adoption are done in a public governing board meeting, I don't think they could all be done in a governing board meeting because we would have to have 3 meetings a week, for months on end. But so ensure all discussions regarding the adoption are done in public meetings. That's the open meeting law doesn't care if it's a governing board meeting or whose meeting it is. It just needs to be public because the public owns government and we're an arm of the government. I think I'm done for now.
Okay. Mr. Owens, did you have comments?
Yeah, no, I just think what Board Member Moran mentioned about number 1, I think it just kind of needs to end it of the district, period.
I don't have any questions because I worked on this with you. Did you have any other things, Danielle? Sorry, Ms. Clymer.
No, I don't have any other questions. I was just going to make a motion to, if we were ready to go there, but if we still have questions.
Mr. Honak, did you have any other comments you wanted to make?
If we're going, I can't support what this has because I really don't think it complies with the law, and we've already had a violation, been found in violation of the law for this very thing. So I'm not just making a suggestion about the curriculum. Our teachers are our top asset, okay? And our curriculum is what the teachers use. And it needs it needs some real clarity. So 7 needs to be rewritten to say that all activities regarding the adoption of curriculum are done in public meetings. So that if it's not at a governing board, it's done at a public meeting, then that at that meeting, whoever all the people are, if they come to the conclusion that they want to recommend something, and then that comes to the governing board, and then we can vote on it and approve it or not. But at least what we're considering is something that the public has, the fact that it's proposed to us is something that the public has had a chance and an opportunity to be aware of before it just comes to the governing board meeting and we all vote on it with a little, after a 5-minute presentation. So that's all I'm saying is that number 7, we would just add are done in a public meeting and strike out governing board.
Okay, so my feedback on your comments, Mr. Honak, is that I do agree that this is something that's already required by law for us to do. I don't think we need to say governing board. I would say the same thing. I don't know that we necessarily need to have it in here because it's required already by the law. And also, this is just a job description, right? So there's going to be more information that we share when we move forward with the search firm. There's going to be things that we have as expectations when we do issue a contract with whoever we hire. There's going to be things that we have in their goals that we're going to evaluate them on. So I don't know that this is the place where we have to put that in there for the job description necessarily. But I'm open to feedback from the other board members.
Yeah, the way I read number 7 is it's not about the discussion of curriculum, it's about the adoption, right? And so that is done at the governing board level. We're the ones that vote to approve it, where all the other activities are in terms of discussion that can go on in public meetings, and it should. But as far as the superintendent's concerned, when we're talking about adopting it, then it goes to the governing board. It's not just the superintendent given carte blanche authority to adopt curriculum. So as it's written, I understand it. And I understand what you're saying, Board Member Honig, but I think this is specific about the adoption of curriculum.
But the problem is, in the past, Jody Gunning, all of these things are done in committees that she appoints. So it is within the purview of the superintendent. We're not watching what happens day to day. And they're going through all these processes. And since the time I've been on the board, we're just handed stuff that they've been working on for weeks and months under the purview of the superintendent, because all the people that are on those committees are the superintendent's employees. They're teachers, they're administrators, people under their supervision. So actually, the superintendent doesn't need to ensure anything about the board. We're the board. We're the ones that can kind of ensure what we do, but we need to give strict instructions to the superintendent about the things that she's going to be doing that don't happen at board meetings. So anyway,
I think that I'm confused at a minimum, because I think what Board Member Honak is referencing isn't actually curriculum. What wasn't actually curriculum at all. It was the equity statement. And so these are two completely separate issues. But to that effect, I think this is a state statute. I mean, adopting curriculum, and there's other state statutes of it being open to the public for 60 days in our district office. People can comb through sets and sets of curriculum. I mean, there's a lot of rules and regulations about this that are not in here. So I would agree, instead of trying to nuance this, just pull it out completely. It is going to be something that is discussed. And obviously, if they are a superintendent, I'm assuming they know that the adoption process of curriculum has to happen in a public meeting, governing board meeting, et cetera. So those can be expectations that we discuss at a later time. But instead of trying to nuance this and whatever, we just pull it out and leave it as is.
okay. Wait, look, I'm not going to let this go. First off, this is not about the equity statement. We voted I think it was $1.8 million for a math program. Okay, does anybody remember that? We spent $1.8 million on a math program. The decision of picking that math program was done with committees that were not held in public. That's curriculum. That's 100% curriculum. And $1.8 million is not nothing. It's a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money. That was done without any public input. It was the first time the public heard about that math program essentially was when we voted for it. So I don't know how Ms. Clymer, saying that I'm talking about an equity statement. I'm talking about curriculum, $1.8 million worth that we voted for after a 15-minute presentation and very little discussion. That's egregious.
This is what he is saying is 100% not true. The first time people heard about it was not when we voted. Can we move on to, this is not in the agenda. We're not agendized to do this. So are you opening the floor for motions?
I am, yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the final draft of the job description with the amended changes that were provided. One, changing bullet number 1 at the end of the word district. Number 2, removing bullet point number 7. And number 3, removing bullet point 27, excuse me, as it's already located above.
I will second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, so I'm going to go through and get everyone's vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Mr. Honak?
Nay.
I'm also a yay, so the motion passes. And we will move to the next agenda item. The to approve to award the RFQ contract number 23-014 recruitment firm educational superintendent search. This is going to be presented by Ms. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board, and Superintendent Gunning. The purchasing department has released a request for quotation for recruitment firm for educational superintendent search. Responses, or excuse me, the request for quotation was sent out to 8 vendors on December 22nd. We had received responses from 5 vendors. The committee members were Dr. Kim Hill, principal of Palm Valley Elementary, myself, Misty Gomez, director of purchasing, Anthony Paduno, principal of Verado Middle School, and Shelley Catlin, which is the buyer in the purchasing department. The evaluation committee evaluated all bids received between January 18th and 20th. Based on the evaluation, the best interest of the district and the committee recommendation is to award this particular to McPherson and Jacobson. Total amount was $28,550.
Thank you. I will just start. Mr. Owens, do you have any questions? Ms. Moran?
No, I asked some questions in advance based on the tabulation information that was provided, and those have all been answered. So thank you for that.
Ms. Clymer?
Same. My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Mr. Honak?
Sorry, it takes a minute to get back from board docs over to the Zoom thing. I don't really have any questions on this. I mean, it's no, I don't.
I also have no questions. So if there's no questions, I am happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the award. I move to approve to award the RFQ contract number 23-014 recruitment firm educational superintendent search to McPherson and Jacobson as recommended.
I'll second.
Okay, having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Abstain.
Mr. Honak?
Abstain or nay? I think nay, because I don't think we have a good, job description. So I guess going to make it a nay.
I am a yay. So motion passes. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of governing board norms. And that's going to be presented by Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, on an annual basis, we review our governing board norms to see if there's anything new or any modifications that would need to be met. So we would ask you at this time if there's any changes or if you'd like to approve them as presented.
So if anybody has any questions, Ms. Clymer, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Ms. Moran?
No questions or comments.
Mr. Owens?
Can I get a history on this? Like, when was this first adopted, or who wrote it, or how long have we been doing it? Please.
They have been in place over quite a few years, even pre-pandemic. It came together as a whole governing board group. So ideas were drafted initially and then gathering feedback from every governing board member to create a final document. And then it's brought back annually for review for suggestions or any edits or things that you would like to add, but it's actually a document of the governing board.
So how long have we had it? Do you know?
I think that we did it in
September 2020, actually.
Okay.
We began discussions about it in the summer of 2019 at our governing board retreat, because that was one of the recommendations to for board relations to come up with a set of board norms. So that was the beginning of the discussion, but yeah,
If
you were president at that time. Clamor.
During the summers, the board typically has a board retreat, and sometimes on off years or even years, I can't remember which, we will do sort of a board 360 review. So we review ourselves and create some board goals specific to the five of us, not necessarily the school district, and work to obviously, be a more collaborative team and that kind of thing. We had someone helping us, collect that information. And as Superintendent Gunning mentioned, this was one of the recommendations from that group in terms of, most of these things we are either already doing just as humans and being on a team, but also just to have something that even as boards changed, we may change some of these elements or whatever, but just collectively we're agreeing that we're going to behave in this way and treat each other in this manner. And it's just morphed. Well, I'm not sure that it's actually changed, but I mean, we just have each new board member sign it as they come on board, and the five of us make a commitment to abide by these norms moving forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Honak, did you have any comments or questions about the board norms?
Yeah, I do. Actually, when I joined the board and I read it and I went that it also, a lot of it sounds nice, but it's also blatantly unconstitutional. And I spoke with Chris Thomas, was it at ASBA, the open meeting law guy, and he basically admitted it had no meaning whatsoever. After being on the board, I find that nobody really pays attention to it, and at least as far as the way I was treated. Board developed communication protocols is the last thing is absurd. That means that you can't talk to people because they have these communication protocols that you have to go get what you approve before. If somebody in the news asks you something or you want to write a editorial or whatever. And so this is and then how about the first thing, lead a district of equity. This is America. We believe in equality, equal opportunity. Equity means socialism. It means that we treat people differently depending on what some pea brain decides that somebody else deserves or whatever. So this is a piece of garbage. It's embarrassing, and I sure as hell am not going to sign it. So that's my comment on it. And it's just something that conjured up when they decided to go all woke a couple years ago. And the district has gone down since then. Teachers are leaving in droves because of the consequences of all the garbage that came along with it. And calling it as it is, there has to be somebody around telling the truth. I'm going to try the best to do that.
Thank you for your feedback, Mr. Honak. I think that it's very common practice for large groups that are working boards to come up with their, board norms or their code of ethics or whatever you want to call it, right? That's very common practice to happen. And this is something that was worked out by the board. I'm definitely open to feedback if there's things, Mr. Owen, since you're new to this, if there's things on here you'd like changed, or maybe it doesn't seem to be accurate, or, please share that information. This should be something that we all want to abide by and are going to agree to abide by.
We all have an oath we took, and no one seems to abide by the oath. So why do we need a woke little instruction thing here? Why don't we just abide by the oath that we all took to support the Constitution and to do our job to get children's educated? So that's the unifying document and thing that we swear when we all took this job, and we should darn well adhere to it.
I would like to let other people have an opportunity to speak. I promise that it will be your turn. But I do want Mr. Owens to answer the question if he has an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the intent behind it. I understand. I feel like it's kind of more fluff than anything. It's nice to have. It's nice to have these things written down and sign it, but do I have a real issue with it? No. Do I think it's necessary? No. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a historical background on it. So
Ms. Moran, did you have any other comments?
No.
Ms. Clymer,
No.
Mr. Honak,
No, I think I said it all. Unconstitutional.
I appreciate your feedback. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the governing board norms as presented.
I will second.
I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
abstain.
Mr. Honak.
Nay.
I am an aye, so motion passes. Next on the agenda is the adoption of governing board superintendent communication protocols. This will also be presented by Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, this is a communication protocol that we put into place probably right around the same time as the norms. But just to kind of be a guideline to outline communication between superintendent and governing board, so that meaning those expectations of communication, as well as governing board to superintendent and governing board communication with public and staff members. Also, it links the policies in which it refers to on the back two items.
I will start with Mr. Owens, since this is new for you this year. Did you have any questions or comments after looking it over?
I have none on this. No.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Owens? What are your thoughts about this? I really want to just know like where you're at with this, because I feel like that's kind of what I wanted to know in the last thing. For me, board norms and these communication protocols, it's important that we as a board are going to agree to treat each other a certain way and all that stuff. That's been sometimes an issue. And so if we can have as many people that are willing to agree to that as possible, and if we need to make changes, I'm totally fine with discussing that. But I'd rather you give me like your honest opinion, like there's things in here I don't think should be in here, or I think it's not appropriate, or I'm good with this. What is your thoughts on that?
We're talking about the superintendent?
I'm talking about the communications
Yeah, no, this
protocol.
is fine. Yeah, I have no problem, Paul. Yeah, this is
Okay.
good. I read it. Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Makes sense. That's why I don't have a question.
okay. Ms. Moran,
No questions.
Ms. Clymer,
No questions.
Mr. Honak.
The real problems with this are, a lot of it is good. The intent of it is good, but when the school district is doing something wrong or the superintendent is doing something wrong, and then you get down to the media that you got to first go through the board or the whatever, it's blatantly unconstitutional. It's actually against our oath. And it's so again, I think this is something, I mean, if we're talking about the Title 15 covering line 7 that we just deleted in the other one, I mean, this one here is just, there's so much of it is in our oath and in Title 15 in the which by the way, when we take that oath, we are swearing that we will adhere to Title 15. So this document is just meaningless, basically. The media stuff and the public stuff is just blatantly, and this is not me, the ASBA. I mean, when I pushed Chris Thomas on it, I mean, he just said, yes, it has no meaning at all. It's it's a fluffy guideline. So I will have no part of it whatsoever.
Thank you for your feedback. Mr. Honak is not wrong in that there is no teeth to this. That's correct. And I mean, just to put that out there and be totally honest, it's just a commitment that we are making, that we're going to follow these procedures, that if the media reaches out to us, we're going to let district know, because that's a courtesy to them to let them know. This is really not meaning to step on anybody's rights to talk to the media or talk to the community in any way, shape, or form. So I don't want people to think that that's what this is doing. It's not limiting us in our abilities and what we can do as individuals at any point. It's just us agreeing that these are the things that we're willing to agree to. And so I support it. But if there's no other questions or comments, I'm open for a motion.
I move to adopt the governing board superintendent communication protocols as presented.
I will second.
I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Can I explain my vote?
can he explain his vote? Amy?
I don't need to.
Is he allowed to anyways?
I'm sorry, what was the question or what?
I'll vote yay.
Okay, Mr. Honak,
I'll vote nay, and I think you can explain your vote. And I'm going to vote nay because it's an agreement, and when I agree to something, I try to adhere to it. And as Ms. Seidema said, if it's just a guideline, this or that, well, I'm not going to support something that says I'm agreeing to do this and that, and I'm not going to. So my vote is nay with a big long explanation. Amen.
my vote is a yay, so motion passes. Because we're running very long into this meeting and I would like people to be able to leave at some point, we are going to just move these last few information items on section 11 to our next meeting in February. And so we'll just move straight to our reports, and we will start with Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, over the last month, we had that wonderful break in between, just spending a lot of times on the campuses, doing not only the school showcases with the governing board members, but also apple pie tours. All of our staff is eager to come back after the holiday break, and just jumping right in. There is benchmark assessments that are currently taking place. So students are engaging in that as we speak. A+ visits occurred at Rancho Santa Fe this last week, and we have Verado L this coming week. So we're excited about that, to have them visiting our campuses. And I think that's all I have for you.
Okay, next up is going to be the reports from governing board members. I will let Ms. Clymer start.
Okay, I know it's getting late, so I will try and be very quick. This last month had the holidays in it, so there was a little bit of a break, and I hope everybody enjoyed their time off. Several board members went to deliver food boxes and books to some of our LESD families, which is always great. We partner with some admin staff and some other people that want to come out and do this. It's in partnership with the Pebble Creek Rotary. So a big thanks to all the staff members that came out and did that, and other governing board members that went door to door knocking and actually got to sort of be the hands and feet of the district that day, which was it's always a really great experience. So also, there's been 2 school tours, Wigwam Creek and Palm Valley. Thank you to principal, instructional coaches, reading and math specialists, teachers, aides, everybody up and down. Everybody is so gracious when we go to these school tours. We take out, a couple of hours of their day, and it's a big chunk of time, and they all have presentations, and we are introduced to student ambassadors, and it's just a really great way for us to see what is going on in the good work that's being done every day. So thank you to Wigwam Creek and Palm Valley. And as we had just the celebration earlier today for the National Board Certified Teachers, I attended one of their small group sessions a couple of weeks ago. Now, I can't remember if it was last year, if it was in January. And it was really great to see the mentorship from the teachers that have gone through the process and are even sort of recertifying at this point in time. I think it's a 4 or 5 years cert, if I can remember. And so they've really been in the trenches and come and sit for hours and just walk through every module and every written piece of communication and really coach the teachers that are trying to go through it now. And, you see some frustration and you see some excitement, and, you kind of see everything in the gamut. And I think it's most important to know that not only these teachers, that these mentor teachers are supporting them, but that based on their presentation several months ago here, that it seems like the district is going to be able to start supporting their efforts and giving them some time during the day to do those types of things, and 1 or 2 days during the year where they can meet together as a group and really get the development they need in order to finish those. I encourage everyone to go back, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which meeting it was, and go back and look at the statistics for national board certified teachers in this district and the results they're getting in their classroom with their students every single day. It is phenomenal. And I think, as a district, we need to be doing more to support this personal endeavor, because not only is this something they can carry on for the rest of their lives as teachers, whether it's our district or someplace else, but while they're here, our students are clearly getting, exceptional quality work because of the personal work they're doing on the side. So big kudos to those. I believe it was just ladies this time, but probably ladies and gentlemen in the future. Also just excited to start the new year. And even though it's not a new school year, it is a new calendar year, and there is some excitement to that. And just looking forward to seeing, we have winter benchmarks, and we have obviously all of our state testing coming up in the spring, and lots of opportunity to show our growth and to show our commitment to our academic success across the board. So anxious to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moran.
Yes, this has been a busy month. Not only the time off, that was amazing, always appreciated, time with family. There were a lot of activities. I did participate or led the superintendent mid-year review that we had on December 15th. And that was a very productive conversation. And we had some constructive feedback from the board, and all of the board participated. And we were able to provide that to Superintendent Gunning. I also attended the Kiwanis Special Needs Holiday Party, which is one of my absolute favorite events. President Saitama was there as well. It's truly heartwarming to see the joy and feel the love of our most special students. And I always love any chance that I get to see Santa. I also participated in the Pebble Creek Rotary food and book delivery. I got to partner with Executive Director DePlane yet again. This is our tradition now for 3 years running. So hope to get year 4 next year. And we delivered to the neighborhood that's north of Dreaming Summit. And that's the same neighborhood that we go to every year. And we utilize Executive Director DePlane's, to me, amazing Spanish speaking skills, but I don't speak any Spanish. So she sounds awesome to me, and everyone understands what she's saying. So it's fantastic. I am very grateful to our community partners, not only Kiwanis for the special needs holiday party, but also to the Pebble Creek Rotary for the food and book delivery. They help spread cheer and love during the holiday season. So I appreciate that. And I know our families that receive their support appreciate that as well. I was privileged to write my last letter of my term as board president, which addressed leadership in the district and the board. Spent some time doing that. I was also sworn in for another 4-year term on this board by Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools, Steve Watson. Thank you to my husband, Patrick, and to Superintendent Gunning for attending the ceremony. I appreciate your support. I also attended both of the school showcases at Wigwam Creek and Palm Valley Elementary. I echo Board Member Clymer's appreciation for the time and effort that goes into helping to highlight to us some of the day-to-day things that go on in those schools. It's always good to see where the direction that comes from this dais goes into the everyday practices at our campuses. Today, I also was able to attend the NBCT small group meeting. So it was very much in sync with congratulating our new National Board certified teachers today. And I, again, echo Board Member Clymer's admiration for the hard work and dedication that those folks put in to receiving the certification. It is very rigorous and is hard fought, hard won. The last thing, last event for this month was on January 17th. I had a meeting with Superintendent Gunning and President Zaidama on our peaceful transition of power. I am grateful for President Zaidama's willingness to serve in this capacity. I thought there might be more of a fight, but and I'm looking forward to seeing the continued progress of this board and district under her leadership. Thank you, President Zaidama. We are in good hands. I'll close with lyrics from Toad the Wet Sprocket's song Starting Now. Hope don't mean you sit there, just waiting for the changes. It's fighting for the long shot, and it's getting in the trenches. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Mr. Owens, would you like to give your first report?
Yeah, I've just been trying to learn as much as I can, as quick as I can, get the lay of the land and make sure that I'm informed for every vote I make. So looking forward to keep learning and helping out.
It's really like learning how to drive while they're building the car around you. So, we're all here to kind of help you out if you have questions. But Mr. Honak, did you have a report you'd like to give?
I would like to make a report. First off, I'd like to give a shout out to our teachers, and they have sometimes an impossible task and very frustrating, and for many of them. But we don't hear a lot of applause for the teachers that come in and do their best under difficult circumstances sometimes, and kids are really tough, but they're in my mind and my heart and my prayers always, regardless of what else happens. I've heard of that the teachers at I believe Bell and Soto, 4th grade teachers, their students had some remarkable achievement, and I know those are relative things, but I feel that there should be a shout out to them and to all teachers that have really done miracles and helped our children learn. I also am very excited under the leadership of our new board president, Zaidama. She is immediately made it very clear to my made me very, very happy that she's interested in board members being able to express their ideas, as opposed to, giving a lecture on what she wasn't going to allow. And she immediately reached out to me by telephone. And this is the first meeting that actually I can hear. I don't know whether it's because there's another Zoom participant, but the volume I could hear perfectly in this. I don't have to raise my hand or whatever. I hope I didn't interrupt too many times, but it's exciting that it seems like we're going to become much more functional as a board. And I think there's some really amazing things that are going to bear fruit, that the board is now seriously undertaking. And so I'm excited about that. It's very unconstitutional that I'm restricted to Zoom, but under Ms. Zaidama, it's at least the best it can be. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I think that the district is going to be beneficial, and so I think as a school district, I think that there's a lot of reason to honor new board president Zaidama with praise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honak. I'm going to go next, and I'm going to be as quick as possible, although it has been a busy month, way busier than I knew it was going to be, because I didn't know I was going to be board president when our last general meeting happened. So we ended December with a special meeting for superintendent's review. It was Dr. Dowling's last meeting. That was nice to have that meeting with him. I'm glad that we were able to get one last meeting and get his feedback and be able to discuss with him things before he left. He was definitely a valuable asset to this board. I also attended the Kiwanis Special Needs Holiday Party at Corte Sierra, which was super amazing. I actually have never been able to go before, and so I'm excited I got to go this year. It's really cool how they bring all the special need, like all the inclusion class, like the self-contained classes in. It's a little field trip for them. They get to leave their campus and come in and have this fun little party for them where Santa's there. And it's just really special and more to their sensory levels that they can handle. And every kid gets a present and they all get to go see Santa and they're so excited, every single one of them. So it was really, really fun to see that happen. I attended the Pebble Creek Rotary Food and Book Delivery as well. That's really just warms my heart in the holidays, right? To see us giving back and seeing why we're here, just reminding us that, you know, everybody doesn't come from the same place and space, but everybody appreciates a present and everybody appreciates having a good meal. And they're all just happy to see you and wishing you happy holidays. So it was super nice to be able to go out and see some of our families and be able to deliver that stuff for them at the holidays and make their holidays a little bit brighter. I attended both of the school showcases at Wigwam and at Palm Valley. It was nice to see Wigwam. Last year we had talked about her trying this no office thing. So this year we got to kind of see how that's playing out and working out with her having no office and basically just being on her feet all day long. And it was they've turned her office into a nice little like calm, peaceful place for teachers to just come in and have a minute if they need to. So I like seeing that. It was great also to see Palm Valley and their work and inclusion there is just, it's an amazing thing to see. Their kids are all just so warm and fuzzy and it's a good time to be there. And every kid just makes you so happy and smile. And we got to go into kinder and preschool, which is like my favorite areas to go. That's where my heart really is all the time. Then I attended the organizational meeting where I was elected the board president. So I guess that's why I'm here now. As board president, that was not something I ever wanted to do, but I do appreciate the support that I've gotten from all of my board members. And I know that we have had some really great board presidents in the past over the many years that I've been in this district. So I'm excited to hopefully be able to do as good a job as the people that I'm following. Since then, because I was the board president, we've kind of hit the ground running and I've worked with HR on the new superintendent job description. So we've had a couple of meetings and conversations. I've had several conversations with Superintendent Gunning. I've also had multiple conversations with our attorney, just trying to figure out all the stuff and how things work and make sure that I'm following all the laws because that's really, really important to me. I also, in my spare time, have done some volunteering. Wigwam Creek Middle School, their booster club reached out to me after hearing me at a board meeting say that I'm interested in helping. So if you need help, reach out, email me, and I'll do it. And Wigwam Creek's the only school that's done it, but I have volunteered now 3 times at their concession stands. And so I'm putting it out there again. If schools need help, I love helping at schools with whatever you need, because I know that it takes a village and it's not just, you know, going and doing flashcards or making copies. It's whatever. So if you need help with concessions, book fairs, you name it, I'm willing to come in and help as long as it fits into my volunteering. I also do in my own kids class because I got to volunteer in kindergarten at Rancho when they had their little pizza parlor day. Room transformations are the best, and I love teachers that do them because it's a lot of work, but it makes it such a fun day for the kids, and it's all about learning while making this really cool experience for them. So I was able to help with that. I was also asked to be part of the parent and community group that met with the A+ judges at Rancho Santa Fe last week when they had their A+ judges visit. And the best part about that is that you're supposed to go in there and tell them all the great things about your campus, which I could go on and on and on. Rancho, I think, is an amazing campus. Their principal is phenomenal. Her whole admin team is great. Every teacher, they love their kids. I could go on and on. But the judges could not stop telling us all the things that were super fantastic about their campus and how they were going to have to take all the things that Rancho was doing back to their districts so that their districts could then implement those things so that they don't lose their employees to us. So kudos to us for all the things that we've put in place, especially all our extra paras, all our extra, like our math interventionists. They were blown away by all of the supports we have in place for our teachers so that the students can really dig deep and learn and improve in their academics. So I think that means that's a job well done for our board as well. And that is, oh yeah, we had a showcase this morning. So that's the end of this week, right? Was our showcase at Palm Valley, which again was really great. So I appreciate everyone taking the time. This is a longer meeting. It's my hope as a board president that we can start to get our meetings to maybe take a little less time, and it's going to take a while to get there, but I'm hoping that we can get there, and I just appreciate everybody's support so far, and thank you for that. And with that, the last thing on the agenda is just the reports we get from our administrators, which are just for information. We as a board all look at them and read them. It's a great way for us to know what's going on in the campuses. I mean, I for one know that I read all those in addition to following all the different schools on their social media apps. And so that's a great way for us to know what's going on the campus. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to put those reports together for us every month. With that, we are all done. So
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
okay, Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Honak,
Yay.
sorry. Mr.
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.